Welcome to the Nonhuman Minds podcast. I'm your host voice, Planethead, and today on episode 1 we'll be discussing an introduction to the world of theory, anthropy, and Otherkinity. Let's jump right into today's episode with a question. What exactly is Otherkinity? Keep in mind that we're going to be using Otherkinity as an umbrella term to describe Therians and Otherkin alike. So, to that question, Otherkinity is a term used to describe people who identify as something other than human, whether it be a plant, an animal, a mythical creature, or a fictional character. Inside of the term Otherkin, there are actually a few terms used to narrow down what someone identifies with, such as Therian, a term used by those who identify with an earth animal, or fictionkin, a term used by those who identify with an individual inside the works of fiction. And these terms only scratch the surface of the labels and terms Otherkin provide to themselves. So let's take a look a little deeper under the surface and go into the different kinds of Otherkin. The first kind of Otherkin we'll be talking about has to do with the kin types of said individual Otherkin, polykin, or polytherian. A polykin is a term that describes someone who has 2 or more kin types, which is described as being the creature you can shift into, that you imprinted on, or that you have a spiritual belief of being in a past life. A creature that you are, for lack of better words. Polykin are actually more common in the community than you think, and it's debatable what exactly the reason for that is. I personally have heard a few explanations from spiritual Otherkin, that is, an Otherkin that experiences their kin type with a spiritual manner or belief, one of which being that it's because you can be reincarnated into many creatures during your spirit's long life. For psychological Otherkin, like myself, the answer may lie something along the lines of having to do with the brain, and how we as humans can bond with multiple individuals so closely that we create kin types with more than one creature. The reasoning is all up to the individual and what they believe in. The second type of Otherkin we'll be talking about involving kin types will be Cladokinity. Cladokinity is described as Therians who do not have a specific breed or species in a class of animals. They have a broader identity than a specific breed. Cladokin may have a kin type that encompasses all felines or all types of mermaids. As an added fact, this means that the traits they carry of that kin type has to do with all the general traits of the class. For example, there may be an Otherkin that feels that stereotypical strong urge towards dogs. He knows he's a dog at heart, through and through, but he can't find a specific breed that he particularly relates to. Well, he soon realizes he may be Cladokin with the dog species as a whole, and that's perfectly okay. Kin types come in a wide variety of shapes and forms, so having a species as your kin type is definitely not far-fetched at all. Again, it's all about the individual. The next few terms we'll be going into will have to do with shifting. Now, seeing as though shifting is a huge part of Otherkinity depending on what you believe in, we've dedicated an entire future episode to describing and understanding the different kinds of shifts, common triggers for these shifts, and some tales from Otherkin around the world. The first type of shifting Otherkin we'll be talking about is the vigilant Otherkin. Vigilant Otherkin are Otherkin who experience shifts more smoothly, like on a sliding scale. Their animal side and human side are integrated in such a way that one can come to the mind stronger or weaker than the other at different times. Shifts happen more gradually and follow a more consistent pattern. However, and I speak as a vigilant Otherkin myself, this does not mean that sudden shifts do not happen. Unexpected stimuli might trigger sudden shifts that are not gradual, such as a car honking for dogkin, or a mouse scampering by for catkin, or even a wave crashing down for mermaidkin. Overall, however, vigilant Otherkinity is a particularly peaceful type of Otherkinity, as most of the time you can track and identify your shifts more easily than some of the other types of Otherkinity. For me, it was significantly easier to identify when I was going into a shift once I labeled myself a vigilant Otherkin and discovered my 2 kin types and identified their recurrent behaviors. But this may be different for other vigilant Otherkin listening now. If you had a different experience, drop by the podcast's website and tell me about your experience as a vigilant Otherkin. I'll be happy to include you in a future episode of the podcast. Now it's time for a quick break from all this information being thrown at you. Let's answer a question from the Therian Amino itself. Kovu the Wolf asks, what do you do when you want a territory but don't live near any forests or green areas? Hey Akovu, Thanks for asking. My answer is this. You don't need forests or green areas to have a territory, even if you're a wolf like your username suggests. Even though it'd be nice to have a territory that corresponds with your kin type, you need to remember that you're partly human, too, and it's okay to combine your human and your kin type's needs into a territory that satisfies both. For example, even though I'm a Jaguarundi, I don't live anywhere near forests or any green areas that would really make my Jaguarundi happy. So I make do with what I have and have claimed a portion of the town I live in as my territory. What I do personally is I find little things inside this neighborhood territory, like a patch of particularly thick trees or tall grass on the side of the street, and I use this to grow closer to my kin side. I know this seems kind of outdated to say, but use your imagination, for lack of better words. I'm sure you'll find a few landmarks that make you happy like I have. Now, on to the next type of shifting otherkin, or should I say non-shifting otherkin. Conkinity is when an otherkin does not experience a shift of any kind. These otherkin have an animal side and a human side that has been fully integrated as one. However, one may be more prominent than the other at separate times. Usually these therians feel half animal, half human at all times. As a bonus fact, the con part is derived from the Latin word constans, which means constant or consistently. Unfortunately, there aren't as many concins out there as I personally would think makes sense, so I don't know much about this type of otherkinity, admittedly. The final type of otherkinity we'll be discussing is called sunkinity. Similar to vigilant otherkinity, but not the exact same, sunkinity is when your animal and human side are completely integrated so you feel them both all the time. At some points it is stronger, where at other times it is weaker on each side. More animalistic one day or more human another day. However, sunkins cannot mental shift into their kin type because it's a constant feeling of both animal and human sides. I used to identify with this type of otherkinity back when I first discovered my Jaguarundi kin side because I was having some serious trouble triggering a mental shift. I would always have sensory shifts and phantom shifts, but never any mental shifts, and it'd frustrate me. Not saying that being a sunkin is frustrating by no means, simply saying that for someone who was uneducated and wanted a mental shift something awful, it was very upsetting to think that it was impossible for you to have one. But that's just my story. I'm sure there are some sunkin out there who are perfectly okay with not having mental shifts, and some that are even glad they don't, as sometimes there can be quite a few negative aspects of having mental shifts, such as having one in public or during a family get-together. The last one's actually happened to me, and let me tell you, it was not fun. Well, we've officially reached the end of episode 1. It's been really fun doing the research for this episode, and I hope you enjoyed listening to me talk about the different terms inside the word otherkin. Let's end this episode by talking about a member of the community, a user that goes by the name Dragon Runes, with lots of fancy lettering. Dragon Runes is a polykin with 3 kin types, 2 dragons and a griffin. That's honestly really awesome. It must be so fun to feel phantom shifts with your kin types. You get the best of both winged worlds, feathers and scales. Lucky you! Dragon Rune says they're a mix between a con and a vigilant otherkin. Wow, I wonder how that works. Do you experience shifts on a sliding scale but don't experience certain shifts? Or maybe you only experience those sliding shifts with 1 or 2 of your kin types, and maybe you don't experience shifts with the other. Anyways, that's all for episode 1, an introduction to otherkinity. I hope you had as much fun as I did making this listening to it, and I'll see you guys on the next episode. Otherkin out.